Another day, another dollar. Reverend Charles 7X, O.T.G, Black is God Podcast, Episode 5. Volcanoes, mud floods, earthquakes, and tsunamis. Sheesh, that's a lot right there, ain't it? Before we get started, let's hop into... Let's get this opening done. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, I like to bear witness there is no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger. I like to greet all of you with the greeting words of Assalamu alaikum. It's a great day, first day of fall. Snuck up on us quickly, wasn't really ready. We had all kinds of different things going on outside in the world. I think it's only right to give you a rundown while everybody's talking about volcanoes and tsunamis, earthquakes and things of that nature. We just had an earthquake in Australia. There's another one in the ocean today. You know, it's been over 4,000 on the island of Palma. You know, so we got a couple active volcanoes. People are worried about a tsunami hitting the East Coast. So I thought it'd be a perfect time just to hop into some conversations and tie some things together, you know. So I'm going to start. It's going to be a little, for some of you, you might be like, why is he starting where he's starting? But it all makes sense. So let's just hop right into this thing. So Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that we come from the triple darkness. And out of the triple darkness came the atom, A-T-O-M, Allah, the original man. And so a lot of people say, what does that have to do with volcanoes and things of that nature? Well, the triple darkness is always operating, it's still going. You know, it's infinity, it's zero. So just like in math, it's always there. It's a placeholder. You can never have anything. You can't build anything without zero first. Zeros are always there, whether you put them there or not. And it's the same as the essential darkness, which ties us to blackness. You're probably still wondering, what does that have to do with anything, Brother Charles? How does that tie to the volcanoes? Well, when you learn about melanin and you learn how it conducts electricity and you start to understand the creation theory, you know, the self-creation of God, the supreme being, you know, God was a man. You know, in scientific terms, what they try to say is that, you know, a meteorite came from space in the early creation of the earth. And that meteorite on its way to earth, they think went through volcano clouds, and the sulfur and some of the chemicals in the volcanic ash wrapped on and attached to this meteorite. And between the guanine and the melanin and the alanine and the meteorite, the heat from the volcano and probably what they say would be a 1 in a million shot of hitting inside of water right at the base where lava was hitting this meteorite. It probably was the essential start of the creation of man and living things on earth. And so a lot of people wonder, how does that pertain to being black? Well, when you look at melanin, we get into that quickly. The pigment that produces hair, skin, eye color also holds great potential to shield humans and equipment from radiation in space. The pigment plays multiple roles in biology. So what we have is we have proof. If you look over here, you have the Tagish Lake meteorite. The Tagish Lake meteorite has some 4.55 billion year old sodium rich alkaline and different compounds. It has melanin in it. It has all of the compounds to create life, and it predates the sun. And so I know you probably think, oh man, this guy just found a picture and show us anything. I got a video here of another meteorite called the Murchison meteorite. It hit in Australia, and I'll let them explain to you about the melanin inside of it. So this meteorite here is older than the give me 1 second.
Murchison contains pre-solar stardust. That means it's older than the solar system itself. It is very valuable because it is a time capsule from the early solar system. It's 4.6 billion years old and hasn't changed much since it formed. The Murchison meteorite is a carbonaceous chondrite, a carbon-rich meteorite. It's a very rare type of meteorite. Only 4% of the meteorites that fall today to Earth are carbonaceous chondrites. The meteorite came from a carbon-rich asteroid, probably from the outer asteroid belt. It traveled more than 1 million years until it reached Earth. The total mass that finally landed on Earth and what was recovered was about 100 kilograms. So much of the mass was lost in the atmosphere upon atmospheric entry. And that was like the largest meteorite of that type that ever landed, not only in Australia, but worldwide on the whole planet. It's a whole mixture of different compounds. So on one hand, you have the dark organic matter that sits in the fine-grained matrix, in the essentially ground mass of the meteorite. These are all kinds of organic compounds, from amino acids, sugar-related compounds, alcohols, and other acids. Some of those were can be considered as the prebiotic chemistry that got delivered in the early days of Earth's history. We study Murchison almost every week in different labs around the world, and every year at scientific conferences, people present new results from Murchison. It keeps on giving. We get more information out, and it's really something that every collection at the museum or university who studies meteorites wants to have. At the first sight, it looks not very spectacular. If you look at it closer, it is actually a sample of our galaxy in a way. It is extremely valuable.
So you could just tell from that in itself. Tested every week. thousands of amino acids and all of the things to start life. And when you look at it, you know, this is part of the Black is God podcast and why it's called that. You can see with the essential blackness, you know, that's essentially black. It's every shade of black, you know, and when you look at the inside of it, it's similar to what they say the inside of our bodies look like and how we are, you know, kind of looks like what old bones look like, right? But, you know, that's for another podcast. We just want to start with melanin coming in from space and going through volcanic ash, and that being part of the kickstart of life on Earth, you know? So when we start there, you know, before, I want to just get a little deeper into that. You know, we get into this book, it's called The Science of Self. You know, and I just want to dig into this melanin thing a little bit better. So here we go. Melanin, the organizing molecule. Neuromelanin, in conjunction with other pigment molecules such as the isopentanoids, function as the major organization molecule in living systems. Melanin is depicted as an organizational trigger capable of using established properties such as photon, electrophonon conversions, free radical redo mechanisms, ion exchange mechanisms, and semiconductive switching capabilities to direct energy to strategic molecular systems and sensitive hierarchies of protein enzyme cascades. Melanin is held capable of regulating a wide range of molecular interactions and metabolic processes primarily through its effective control of diverse covalent modifications. To support the hypothesis established and proposed, properties of melanin are reviewed, included the possibility that neuromelanin is capable of self-synthesis, melanin's role in embryological organization and tissue repair regeneration via sustained direct current is considered in addition to its possible control of the major homeostatic regulatory systems, autonomic, neuroendocrine, and immunological. So essentially it's saying that melanin is what organizes and processes and puts all of these things together and is capable of self-creating. You know, and I wanted to get into melanin is a conductor whose configuration varies under the action of electric or electromagnetic fields. Melanin assembles the simplest elements and can control the form and function of cell adhesion. Stellar melanin is a producer of organic molecules, while terrestrial melanin assembles organic molecules and macromolecules. As an electrical conductor, black matter can regulate the chemistry and the balance of ions, radicals, and molecules within interstellar clouds. Black matter helps shield organic matter from radiation, the basic energy for organic synthesis. Heat, ionizing radiation, ultraviolet radiation comes from the stars. So essentially, what we have is the triple darkness. And out of the triple darkness, we have one atom, Allah, the original man, actual atom, the atoms that they studied. That atom, self-created and split. And once it split, that process kept happening. And that process began to create an electrical current through the dark matter that was the essential blackness of space that's still there when we see it. So out of that out of that, what we have is the creation of the first asteroid as this started to heat and cool. You start to form rocks. You start to get all of these compounds sticking together that are still living organisms. And essentially they say that's how the universe was created. And now we have Earth. We have these planets and they're creating, and then we're getting bombarded with meteorites of melanin and dark matter and all of this. And so when we think of this process, some people say when you see a volcano, what you're witnessing is the creation of the earth. And some will argue the creation of all life on earth. So right now, before we get 100% into the volcanoes, we're going to touch into an eddy minimum, a solar minimum. If you look over here, you'll see the solar minimums over the centuries and how it impacts the world. A solar minimum essentially is the study of the sun and its atmosphere. So it's named after a guy named John Allen Jack Eddy. He was born March 25th, 1931. He died June 20th, 2009. He was an American astronomer, and he studied historical sunspot records, and he popularized the name the Maunder minimum, what some call the Eddy minimum, also known as the Eddy minimum. The Maunder minimum, also known as the prolonged sunspot minimum, was a period around 1645 to 1715 during which sunspots became exceedingly rare. During a 28-year period, 1672 to 1699, within the minimum, observations revealed fewer than 50 sunspots. This contrasts with the typical 40,000 to 50,000 sunspots seen in modern times over a similar time span. The minimum was described by solar astronomers Edward Walter Maunder and his wife, Anne Russell Maunder, who studied how sunspot latitudes change with time. The two papers were published in Edward Maunder's name in 1890. In 1894, he cited earlier papers written by Gustav Sporier. Because Annie Maunder had not received a university degree, restrictions at the time caused her contribution not to be publicly recognized. The term Maunder minimum was popularized by John A. Eddy, who published the landmark paper in Science in 1976. The Maunder minimum occurred within the Little Ice Age, a longer period of lower than average European temperatures. The reduced solar activity may have contributed to the climate cooling, although the cooling began before the solar minimum, and then primary cause is believed to be volcanic activity. So, hopefully you can understand now why I took the long way to where I'm going, but just hold on. There's more. So we have the essential blackness of space. We have the small atom that's created, that self-creates itself. Out of that self-creation process, we have the clouds of smoke that are emitting black clouds, and all of this is alive because it's melanin. It's all of these different compounds that are just self-creating and reacting as this reaction is happening because they conduct electricity. Just how they say tsunamis work. You know, you don't need a wave, you just need the energy to be able to transport, and it creates waves that can happen and be felt for however long based on the impact and the power. So what we have now out of the essential blackness is the first atom, a lot of the original men, and out of that smoke that happened out of it finally creating itself, started to create the same smoke that we see in space right now, this process that we see going on. And essentially, the Earth was born out of that process. And they say through a volcano, one of these rocks came through, the heat from the volcano and water made the first living organisms on Earth. And this possibly happened during an eddy or a solar minimum, during what would be considered a little ice age. All right. So this is also connected to how the weather is. So I wanted to play this for you.
But it is. The moon's orbit is predicted to wobble in the next decade. Now, I know it's a funny term, but it essentially just means its path around the planet would change shape. It's a pretty regular thing happening about every 18.6 years. But a new study finds that global sea level rise could make that next shift catastrophic for some communities. The researchers paint a particularly ominous future for Florida. In St. Petersburg specifically, massive king tide flooding hits the city now 6 or 7 times a year. King tides are what come along with a full or new moon. While those floods 6 or 7 times a year could increase tenfold by the mid-2030s. Joining us.
So with that happening, we have the moon wobbling because we have the poles shifting. The poles are shifting. And what we know now throughout history, and what, if you look at my other podcasts, you know, about inner Earth, which makes all the sense in the world, why maybe an ancient civilization knew what was coming, because they had the best technology and they went in the Earth. Instead of trying to build up to God, they decided to survive forever and not lose their civilization. It would be smarter to dig in the ground. And so when you go back to the history of Agartha, the kingdom of Agartha, that whole Inner Earth podcast I did, they talk about deluges, and they say Manu, there was 6 evolutions of Manu, civilization. Manu is the first man to repopulate the earth after a major event. So they said that we are on the 7th evolution, our civilization of Manu. So there were 6 prior floods prior to where we are right now, and each Manu, allegedly to the inner earth teachings of Agartha, lasts 80,000 years. So I don't know where we're at in that term. You should go watch that podcast. It'll let you know. But this is how I'm tying this all together. So we have 7 deluges, we have volcanoes, we have, and that it also says this happens whenever the poles shift. Well, they say the poles are shifting right now. And I believe it said it hasn't happened in the last 200 years. I'm not stating that's actual fact. I'll provide it in the next podcast, but the poles are definitely shifting. That's actual fact, north and south. So we have the pole shift. We have volcanic activity. We have the moon wobbling. We have flooding and earthquakes. Let's keep going.
But it is the moon's.
So now we get into volcanoes. You know, we have the Palma Volcano going off in Canary Islands. You know, if you're not unfamiliar, where the Canary Islands are. You know, they're right off the coast of northern Africa. Heavy tourist spot. Heavy tourist spot owned by Spain. Here recently on September 19th, 2021, the La Palma volcano, Combra Vejo volcano on the Spanish island of La Palma, essentially started to erupt. It hasn't erupted since 1971. It says it happened at 3:12 local time. I said it was shooting lava 2,000 degrees and heights up to 5,000 feet. Nearly twice the size of Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest skyscraper. Say it sits about 300 miles off Morocco's shores in the Atlantic Ocean. So there's a belief that this volcano could cause a landslide that would cause a tsunami and take out the East Coast. And this volcano is active. And as we spoke earlier, you know, about the volcanic ash, the ash is spreading everywhere. They've evacuated most of the island. We have another active volcano in Mexico, you know, and active earthquakes all around. About 16 volcanoes that are active right now, going into the start of this Eddy minimum that started in 2019 and will continue until 2029. 2029. So right now they say what happens when you have a volcano is the ground starts to swell and it goes up 8 inches, 9 inches. And also with the growth of volcano, what you have is the lava as it comes up, it grows up quickly. Once it dries, it kind of puffs up, but it's porous in how it dries. Therefore, grass and anything that is dropped in by birds and different animals that may fertilize it grows plush and grows green. That's where a lot of your black sand beaches come from and things of that nature. Well, this volcano is currently active. As you can see, this is from earlier today, September 22nd, 2021. This is earlier today, 1 hour ago. It's currently 9:04 p.m. And you can see how it's shooting up. So imagine a meteorite from early violent space shooting through there, landing in the water, and that being the starts of life. And when we think of the last slide, stay to the end when you see the very last slide, and you think of the inner glow that would be happening. It's pretty amazing, and you can start to visualize. But let's keep going, because for a volcano to happen, you have to have an earthquake. And they say that's the normal sign of volcanic activity. So what we have in the top of this slide is from 1963 to 1998. This is a visual of all the earthquakes that have happened. And what you have is a drawing of the tectonic plates that they say all of the continents and everything sits on, that's always merging. And so on those spaces is also where you'll find volcanoes, because they say that's where Earth's magma comes up and vents. And that's how you get new land and constant growing and Earth's ever changing of itself. You know, so if you look in the bottom corner, you'll see that today, you can see the date, September 22nd, 2021. While we have the earthquake happening here off the coast of Morocco, we also had a earthquake go off in the Virgin Islands of around a 4.1, which isn't far from where the couple of active volcanoes are. With the worry of, you know, an active hurricane season, and now these active volcanoes which cause earthquakes in the Atlantic Ocean, you know, people have been on the rise of talking about a tsunami on the East Coast. So if we look, and it says an earthquake, also known as a quake, tremor, or trembler. I've never heard somebody say trembler. It's pretty crazy. Is the shaking of the surface of the earth resulting from a sudden release of energy in the earth's lithosphere that creates seismic waves. Earthquakes can range in size from those that are so weak that they cannot be felt to those violent enough to propel objects and people into the air and wreak destruction across entire cities. The seismicity or seismic activity of an area is the frequency, type, and size of earthquakes experienced over a period of time. The word tremor is also used for non-earthquake seismic rumbling. So I like to show you what a 9.1 looks like. A 9.1. This happened in Japan in 2011. It happened under the sea, but I want you to see the damage it caused on the ground. And then following was a tsunami. So when you see that, that's a 9.1. That is a 9.1. I mean, imagine sitting in there and that happening. I don't know what people think they could do with the earth. And so once you have these earthquakes, what happens if you're by water? You have a tsunami. So here is the island of La Palma, and they believe that a large landslide in Canary Islands could generate a tsunami with basin-wide impact. Faults on the southwest side of the La Palma Island associated with Cumbre Viejo volcano could be the detachment surface of a mega landslide. So they believe this whole piece right here, because this is where the volcano is, If this was to fall all into the ocean, it would create so much, the splash would be so big and so much dirt and dust going into the ocean at one time would create a tidal wave that would send 300-foot waves 8 hours away to the United States. So they say right now, as of today, there's almost no chance of this happening today or in the next week or so. But they also believe that this volcano could go off for 55 days. And so they worry that if it shoots up extremely high, too steep, the sides will cave in, and that will start shooting harder waves out in the water and creating just some issues from that. So a tsunami is a harbor wave, is a series of waves in a water body caused by the displacement of a large volume of water, generally in an ocean or a large lake. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and underwater explosions, including detonations, landslides, glacier calvings, meteorite impacts, and other disturbances above or below water, all have the potential to generate a tsunami. Unlike normal ocean waves, which are generated by wind or tides, which are generated by the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun, a tsunami is generated by the displacement of water by a large event. So, let's look at what happens during a tsunami. So this is what happened shortly after in Japan, after the earthquake happened. So what happens normally is the water disappears. It sucks out. So it gets really, really low. And then it starts to come back. So if you look right here, you can see it coming. I want you guys to hear it. Hear the sound of it. You can hear the water rumbling in the back. If you look right here, you can see it. So these are houses. Right here is the wave. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Right there is the wave. So that's the regular size of water. The wave is coming in. I don't know why these people didn't leave. Watch how fast this water breaks. Look how fast the water is rising. It's the most amazing thing you'll probably ever see. So I want you to understand that the water isn't flowing in faster, it's rising up. So it's going straight up and coming forward at the same time. Everything that you see brown is water. That's water and the dust from the water. So you can see the cars trying to escape it. Those are cars trying to escape it, and you're going to watch the water just take the cars out and take the buildings out. Those is all people that was alive, and it's just coming all across in one place, just wiping out everything. So when you see that, that's the destruction from a tsunami. And this is what people are worried about happening if there was a landslide from one of the volcanoes on the East Coast. Which takes us to this mud flood theory. You know, there's a theory that a catastrophic event happened on the earth, and civilizations were already built up. And maybe a flood or mud floods came, and from those mud floods, it may have took out a large sum of Earth's population. And what we see in old pictures is people excavating the same thing that we're watching and seeing people do now, is digging down into our true history. And you know, we live in the shales, and some of these buildings that we think have great architecture have been here for centuries, if not longer. You know, what you'll see if you look across the internet is people say Tartary, which is the area of Mongolia. But if you look a little deeper, what you'll see is some of these buildings might have been here longer than these guys. They may have just been one set of people who were around during a specific time period. You know, think of the different evolutions of Manu. You know, so if you think of that and you say that is the truth, or that could have some truth to it, then, you know, they could be the 5th version or the 6th version, you know, the start of the 5th. And we are the 6th, because once you start to dig into this whole mud flood theory, what they believe is at the beginning, end of the 18th century into the 19th century, that history was reset. That something happened in the 1700s that might have wiped out of most of humanity, and everything restarted in the 1800s. And this is why when you look at pictures, there's all of these cities, but dirt roads and mud roads. And it looks like there's towns, whole cities that are built with all of these housing, but you never see any people in the pictures, you know. And so they believe that people essentially just moved into these ghost towns, and this is how people essentially have control today, and that they hide the history of what really happened so that people don't know. But essentially, you know, this could be something that happens regularly, you know, with deluges. Well, they call them resets. What I found is that it would probably be floods, volcanic eruptions, which are fire, and floods. So, you know, water and fire. So I like to show you some of these pictures they have. You can see some of these pictures they have from the 1800s, where they have some of this, all of these material and brick, but did they bring it in on a brick road? Like, how did this happen? Where's the scaffolding? They have the picture like they're digging out the streets. They have concrete and sidewalks and beautiful siding and bricks and housing, but mud roads. You know, and a lot of the buildings look like they were covered with mud. You could tell a lot of buildings had brick built on the outside of them. And it just looks like things were always being dug out. And that the housing was always here for the most part. You know, so their thought process is that there was some type of flood, mud flood, that covered the ground up and covered most of the civilization across the United States that was already here. And they believe this happened around the world. They believe that that's why the Sphinx is where it is. They had to dig it out. They had to dig out the pyramids, and they still haven't dug them all the way out. And they have these houses where these are real places where you could see the building, and the windows just don't make sense for why they're that deep in the ground. But then you have all of this mud and streets that are made of mud, but look how nice the building is. Just doesn't make sense. And where are the people? You have these big, huge buildings with all of these rooms and all of these houses with huge houses with 3 stories. Where are all the people that are outside in all of the pictures? We never see any. So it's like a lot of people, we moved into a ghost town and repopulated civilizations and cities that were already here, is essentially what they're saying. And just built around them and out. And that, I'll get to that. So one of the other random things that happened in the news today is that all of a sudden they believe that they might really have Planet X that showed up yesterday. So is it a member of the new solar system club? The existence of a new planetary body could explain the peculiar movements of celestial objects orbiting beyond Neptune. Over the past few years, data has been compiled on peculiar, you know what I'm trying to say, don't judge my life, orbital patterns and some objects beyond Neptune's orbital sphere. These are bodies that move with elongated orbits and ellipses oriented in the same direction on planes inclined with the same angle and with orbits in some cases that run in the opposite direction to normal. This cannot be explained by the influence of the massive bodies that we know of and suggests the possible existence of a planet that we have not yet seen, but which would be between 300 and 800 times further away from the sun than the Earth is. It would be a big planet with a mass of between 5 and 10 times greater than ours, with a moderately inclined 15 to 20 degrees and elongated orbit. Above all, it would be a planet that would be very difficult but not impossible to detect over the course of the next decade, and one whose process of formation, due to the huge distance between it and the sun, also presents a formidable problem. So I have a article here where this guy right here says he thinks that Earth problems on Earth and extinctions between civilizations happen to when Planet X comes around. So he says periodic mass extinctions on Earth, as indicated in the global fossil record, could be linked to a suspected ninth planet. According to research published by a faculty member of the University of Arkansas Department of Mathematical Sciences, Daniel Whitmire, a retired professor of astrophysics now working as a math instructor, published findings in the January issue of Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society that the yet undiscovered Planet X triggers comet showers linked to mass extinctions on Earth at intervals at approximately 27 million years. Though scientists have been looking for Planet X for 100 years, the possibility that it's real got a big boost recently when researchers from Caltech inferred its existence based on orbital anomalies seen in objects in the Kuiper belt, a dish-shaped region of comets and other large bodies beyond Neptune, and the Cow researchers are correct. If the Cow researchers are correct, Planet X is about 10 times the mass of Earth and could currently be up to 1,000 times more distant from the Sun. Whitmire and his colleagues, John Matesi, first published research on the connection between Planet X and the mass extinctions in the journal Nature in 1985 while working as astrophysicists at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Their work has featured in the 1985 Time magazine cover story titled "Did Comets Kill the Dinosaurs?" A bold new theory about mass extinctions. At the time, there were three explanations proposed to explain the regular comet showers. Planet X, the existence of a sister star to the Sun, and vertical oscillations of the Sun as it orbits the galaxy. The last two ideas have subsequently been ruled out as inconsistent with the paleontological record. That was a very long word, but we did it. Only Planet X remained as a viable theory and is now gaining renewed attention. Whitmire and Matesi's theory is that Planet X orbits the Sun. Its tilted orbit slowly rotates, and Planet X passes through the Kuiper belt of comets every 27 million years, knocking comets into the inner solar system. The dislodged comets not The dislodged comets. I lost where I was and everything. Sheesh, podcasters, but we are back. Not only smash into the Earth, they also disintegrate in the inner solar system as they get nearer to the Sun, reducing the amount of sunlight that reaches the Earth. In 1985, a look at the paleontological record supported the idea of regular comet showers dating back 250 million years. Newer research shows evidence of such events dating as back as 500 million years. Whitmire and Matesi published their own estimate on the size and orbit of Planet X in their original study. They believed it would be between 1 and 5 times the mass of Earth and about 100 times more distant from the Sun. Much smaller numbers than Caltech's estimates. Matesi has since retired and no longer publishes. Whitmire retired from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette in 2012 and began teaching at the University of Arkansas in 2013. So I got this video I found recently, yesterday, about Planet X.
Planet 9, sometimes called Planet X, is...
Here we go.
Planet 9, sometimes called Planet X, is sort of a conundrum. It could be out there, but we've never directly seen it. Theoretically, if it's where we think it is, its oblong orbit takes place way past Neptune, on an orbit that would take it 10,000 to 20,000 Earth years to circle the Sun. So why do scientists think it might be out there? Well, Planet X is theoretically really big, and experts have been able to observe peculiar gravitational effects on other objects out in the vastness of space. According to Science Alert, dwarf planet 2012 VP113, for instance, was lining up orbitally with 5 other cosmic bodies out beyond Neptune, which astronomers from the California Institute of Technology say is extremely unlikely without a large planet-sized object pulling them into alignment. But this clustering is relatively unique, and if there was a Planet 9, we might expect other instances of it. Another theory is that there's an itty-bitty black hole messing with our math, one only about the size of a cereal bowl. Still, Planet 9 could be lurking out there, slowly moving around the Sun about 10 times the distance from Neptune, meaning it's going to take astronomers astronomers a while to cross off each area of the sky, hopefully eventually proving or disproving Planet X's existence.
So it just gets even more crazier, doesn't it? So, you got people talking about a planet Nibiru. They said it didn't exist. That was in ancient Babylonian times. That's where they say the Anunnaki came from, is Nibiru. But let's get into a section of Fall of America. Then I'll give you my theory, So if we get into Fall of America by Honorable Elijah Muhammad, page 59, it says, chapter 14, every nation has a term. And every nation has a term. So when its turn comes, they cannot remain behind the least while, nor can they proceed. Holy Quran 734. There was a term for the people of Noah, Lot, and Moses. This also holds true in the life and death of individuals. All is under the control of Almighty Allah, especially when a divine beginning and ending has been appointed for the accomplishment of a certain work that must be done by the life or the life of peoples. The above chapter and verse of the Holy Quran is a warning to the present nation whose term is now coming to an end. If we know what is said to us and what is written by the prophets for us to read, study, and ponder over, and if we understand, we should not fall victims to misunderstanding and disbelief. The trouble with the black man in America is that he is heedless of the truth, for he was reared by slave foster parents who were his enemy, the white race. It caused him to become heedless. It was the intention of the enemy to make the black man an enemy to the truth, as he himself was and is. This, the enemy was successful in doing. For the Aboriginal black man in America is referred to as being deaf, being blind, deaf, and dumb, and in many instances as dead. This is where the work of the enemy. Therefore, it took one who is our friend and not our enemy to do good to us and restore us to life mentally. The children of the fathers who took our life, our mental, are working just as faithfully as their fathers did. However, since 100 years have elapsed from the time of their slave fathers, the children are wiser and educated more in methods to keep the Aboriginal black man in America blind, deaf, and dumb. In the days of servitude slavery of our grandparents, the white slave master did not even give them good food. Today, you can go buy good food if you have money. However, much of it is poisoned by chemicals used. I just want to stop there. So when we look at all of these events that's just happening, we're talking volcanoes, tsunamis. We see a history of the mud flood. If you look at the old podcast, you could see when you look at Patmos, we're wondering why it's got black people on the wall, but it's white people standing there. Then you go to the next podcast and we get into the 24 scientists and Inner Earth and Agartha, and we realize, it says it could have been 6 deluges, 6 major floods, or 6 extinction level events. It talks about the time where the black nation ruled the whole earth and built all of the huge buildings that are all around the earth, and had the people working and digging out and excavating the earth. And we learn of the white man going into the caves and moving into the caves and utilizing that for a time. And as they came out of the caves and integrated back into society, it would look like, what if, you know, a great extinction level event happened, and some of the people who lived in the caves came out of the caves, procreated, and then, you know, in a not so heavily populated Earth, it would make more sense of how someone was able to come in and move into people's territory without having to take over the people. It would also make sense of how some of these grandiose stories become, you know, catfish stories. So how does this all come together? You know, a lot of you guys, your heart's probably pumping out of your chest. You're not going to be able to sleep good tonight. You're staring at the ceiling, thinking about all that fried chicken you was eating, all that pork and swine and all those white women you was loving on. Now you're thinking about getting flooded, you know. All jokes aside, I would say do not be in fear. You know, the answer is always the same. It's just to accept your own and be yourself. You know, do for self. Make sure you take care of your family. I would, you know, start to gather groceries and water and things of that nature. You know, spend less time focused on things outside and preparing yourself, buying books, you know, making sure your vehicles are good, making sure you're good, your health is good, you know, things of that nature. You know, detaching from TV and being kind of distracted, you know, and trying to find better sources of news that are telling you things that are accurately happening right now. That would be my advice and what I would do. You know, and as I said earlier, here is the last picture. This is what I couldn't stop thinking about when I was looking at the volcanoes. And I was thinking about the creation story, and it said anthropomorphic God wrapped himself. The Starman had to wrap himself in the primordial black muds. And the glow from the inner self emitted a glow through his pores where you could see the blackness, but you could also see the light emitting through his pores, which gave his eyes a reddish glow. So when I think about how they say, and I'm looking at the volcano, and you're thinking about it at nighttime, and you think about how dark lava is, and you're thinking about these comets and asteroids, and you're thinking about mud floods, and then you think about, boom, anthropomorphic God, meteorite comes through, lands, the lava from a volcano allegedly mixes, and what you may get is a being that's glowing from the inside out, fiery red, covered in blackness. I'm just saying, I don't know why they have a picture of it, because I didn't make it, you know what I mean? Sounds pretty crazy, but we're looking at the picture right there. So what does that mean? Maybe we're in the time for black gods to come back. It's very volcanic outside. It's looking kind of floodish outside. It's looking like we just got missed by an asteroid. It's looking like the sun is you know, on its chill side, which means less sunlight to the planet, which they say causes more volcanoes and earthquakes, hence more tsunamis. Looks like we got this black planet, Planet X, the unknown. Say it's coming around Nibiru. You know where they say the black aliens come from, Anunnaki. Looking a little Nibiru-ish outside, and they say every time it comes around, guess what it does? Send comets towards the sun, blocking sun rays. It's looking like it might be the time of blackness outside. Power outages. Might be time for the black gods to come back. I don't know. There's this little book called The Fall of America. I think you should get it, you know. I say little because I'm being condescending to you people who won't buy it. You know how I am. Don't judge my life. If you want more information, please join the Nation of Islam website. Scroll down to the bottom, hit the Nations program, sign up. You can add my number 250491. If you want more information about me, you can come to 7xotg.com. Hop inside of the Discord chat. Make sure you visit Black is God the store. Get all of your detox teas and baths. Stay COVID free. Check out OTGSafeSpaces.com. That's where you can join the Clubhouse group and have this conversation live. Make sure you join the email list at OTG123.org. That's how you can find everything OTG and everything about me. And you know, my conspiracy theory is this. Yep, I waited to the last second to give it to you because I figured you probably cut it off by now and missed it. My conspiracy theory is this. I believe there has been multiple resets on this earth. I believe that there was a great civilization that probably created most of that was farther in technology than we were. I believe something happened on the earth and wiped most of them guys out. I believe that white people moved right on in and set up their rules, and the time has came, and we might be getting ready to enter another one now. But I think where we're at in civilization, you know, maybe more of us might be able to survive. Hell, we don't know how many survived the last time, so you know, we don't know how cataclysmic it might be. It might just be cataclysmic to buildings and things of that nature. That's why they say most history, true history, is passed down orally. And on that note, that's my 2 cents. Have a great night. Share, like, comment, all of that. I hope you found this informational. And like I said, I got a full documentary coming where I'll touch on a lot of this stuff more in depth with video and diagrams and things of that nature. But this is just a podcast, and I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you in a couple days.